Hi everybody, welcome back to Indycar on Monday. I'm Gordon Ross and it's the 13th of August, and today actually is not a day really for Indycar news. Today, because it's the, as they call the silly season, the time when the politicians are on holiday and therefore not there to do the silliness as usual, there's a distinct lack of any kind of meaningful political stories in the news at the moment. So today I wanted to take a little bit of time out from giving you news to giving you an idea of what the new shape of Scotland would look like, particularly its economy after independence. Very little has been talked about how we build a new economy after we leave the British Union, the UK Union. How do we build that economy? How do we get it stable enough to support 5.5 million people without damaging the environment, without using up all of the resources that we have, and managing the natural resources that we do have left in a way that allows Scotland to continue to flourish, but without sacrificing these natural resources that we have in such abundance. Now, one of the things that people are always very enthusiastic about when they're talking about independence is the idea of some kind of social element to economic planning. In other words, the more even sharing of profits, just for example, and the idea that the country would be socially fairer and there would be more opportunities for everybody and less of this 1% of the population getting all of the profits. So how does that actually happen in a new independent state, and how can you guarantee that that will be the case regardless of which party is in power after independence? Remember, after independence it may not be the SNP that ends up becoming the government, it might be some kind of coalition. How is the new country going to guarantee that whoever is ruling it makes a good job of it and balances the interests of business, the economy, social cohesion and the welfare safety net that we rely on for our health and well-being? So what I wanted to look at today is the sort of generalities of how you could guarantee that, and one of the ways that this can be guaranteed is through a written constitution. And those of you who have been involved in the independence movement for a long time will know that the United Kingdom has no written constitution. And the main reason for this is that it relies on historical precedents. In other words, other case law, other common law, to develop some kind of system of rights and responsibilities in civic life. But the problem with this is it allows whichever government is in power in the UK to do whatever it pleases and to get away with it, because there is no written constitution that forces them or obliges them to do certain things. And so a written constitution is vital to a new state to guarantee that the government that we choose behaves itself properly and carries out the will of the people who, in the case of Scots, are the ultimate arbiters. We are the sovereign people of the country. We're higher than the Queen, we're higher than even the government of Scotland itself, and we get to decide who governs the country. So we need to make sure that that government is behaving itself all the time and carrying out the will of the people, the majority of the people who voted them in. A written constitution, as well as guaranteeing the rights and responsibilities of every citizen, would also guarantee the responsibilities of that government. In other words, it would put a written pledge into law which says that that government must do certain things to protect the people of Scotland from risks, from disasters, from economic woes. And to do that, we need to have a constitution which tells the government what the parameters are that the people want in terms of their economy. One of the suggestions I want to put to you today is that we do this in a three-layered system. At the moment, as you know, big corporations can come into Scotland and do things like siphon off natural resources and pay very little in the way of taxes here because they are not domiciled in Scotland. They don't have an HQ here, and because of that, the British government, by the way, doesn't charge them much tax either because they're registered offshore. Now, in a new country with the new constitution, we need to guarantee that that kind of tax evasion doesn't happen anymore, and that the resources that are being exploited are steered primarily, or the results of that, the benefits of that, are steered primarily into the pockets of the people of the country and not into the bank accounts of wealthy people in places like Monaco and the Cayman Islands. So how does that work? Well, the first thing to do is decide how much of your economy is going to be large multinational corporations, transnationals as I call them, companies which have no home base anywhere in the countries where they operate. In other words, they hover around in tax havens, hoovering up profits and paying very little taxes. So the first thing we need to do is stop them from operating in Scotland completely. And if they want to operate, for example, if Amazon wants to operate in Scotland, or Texaco, or one of the big oil companies, or a gas corporation, or some other transnational company with no tax home in Scotland, they would need to give us something back. They would need to agree to something which benefits the country. And one of the things that you could do, and this is just a suggestion, let's say it was a gas company wanting to exploit gas in our territorial waters, then instead of paying taxation to us, we just insist that they guarantee that every single household and business in Scotland gets that gas for free. That will be the price of their licence. That way the entire country benefits endlessly from free energy from that company, and whatever is left for export is whatever that company wants to do with it. They can sell it around the world and pay no taxes here. But the main thing is the benefit must stay here. So rather than taxing these big multinational companies, we simply trade with them. That way they're not paying money to us, but they're giving us services or goods for free. Now this is a better way, I think, of obtaining the benefits of taxation, but without having to go through the banking system per se. So imagine that an oil company is extracting oil from the North Sea, which they do of course every day, but instead of pumping that oil onto a tanker and taking it away and paying no tax to Scotland, we would insist that for that oil company to operate inside our territorial waters, that they must supply free of charge to every business that's registered in Scotland and every human being who lives here, is domiciled here, free petrol, free diesel, free heating oil. Everything else that they then take out of the oil wells, they are free to trade with whoever they like and pay taxes wherever else they want. But their taxation here would be in kind rather than in cash. Now this is a good way to do business because it means that companies know how they're operating. They don't have to worry about taxation. They just have to supply the needs of the nation itself, and everything else that they do is profit after that. Easy for them to factor that in. Easy for the government of the day to insist upon it. It makes sure that the energy needs of the people of the country are met before any other consideration is made for the transnational companies. And in this way, the people of Scotland end up with free energy, we end up with free electricity and free fuel to go about our business, and that means more money in everybody's pockets, including businesses, including individual people, the disabled. Everyone benefits from it almost equally. And it is one of the great levelers in society if you can provide the essentials of life virtually free of charge, or at least in trade for something else. For in this case it would be taxes. There should be an incredibly efficient way to tax transnationals who are trying to exploit our resources. It's just one way, incidentally. The second sector of the Scottish economy would be made up of what I call indigenous, large and small Scottish companies. These would have to have special tax status as well. And what I mean by that is instead of giving tax breaks to the wealthy investors of those companies, we give tax, shall we say, tax allowances to those companies, but only if they give pay rises commensurate to the profits they're taking to all of their employees, or they employ more people. We can work out a formula for this, which means that if a company does not wish to pay more tax, then they must either employ more people or pay them more money. That way the taxation comes not from the company, but it comes through the individuals who are being paid by the company. In other words, the employees pay a little bit more tax because they're earning more. Again, the employees and everybody around them benefits, the local economy benefits. What's left over in profits, which is not taxed, can go to the investors. And another, a nice little sum can be organised to make sure that that works successfully for everybody. So what we're talking about here is starting to share the country's wealth a little bit more evenly and in a way which is much more efficient than it currently is. And then finally we get to the last sector of the economy, which is, as I would call it, the social enterprise, or the third sector, the sector which contains charities and self-supporting not-for-profit companies which perform a social service in society, either supporting people who need support, providing food for those who don't have it, looking after the elderly and the sick, providing childcare, any kind of service which aids human beings but which is not profit-making. And that should be supported by some of the taxation from both of the other two tiers of the economy. The government can maybe make up some of it in terms of grant aid, but I would like to see the third sector expand far more than it has at the moment, to take advantage of a large number of people who are living longer but who have terrific experience and still have drive and energy to work in any sector at all and to contribute to civic life. In this way, we can create jobs for older members of society as well, allow them to continue to use the experiences and the skills that they've obtained through a lifetime of work, and reward them with a proper paid job. The payment for that job will come out of the profit made by that self-sustaining service business. Now, we're talking about care homes, we're talking about food banks, we're talking about child creches, we're talking about any kind of service which aids human beings to live a better life. So by doing these three things in this sort of a way, we can construct a country where the government has a duty to ensure that these things happen, and that's written into the Constitution right from the outset. The government must perform this particular function with transnationals. They must trade in this way. There is scope and latitude for increasing and decreasing these sorts of trades. The second sector, the government is obliged to help and to prioritise homegrown companies which are working internally in the internal market, and also to prioritise homegrown companies which are exporting goods or services abroad. These things need to be concentrated on. They need to be rewarded with lower taxation for higher numbers of people employed and for higher wages paid to those employees. All of these things can be done. They're not being done by the Tories because the Tories are only interested in profit for the 1%. I'm talking about not socialism, I'm just talking about a bit of fairness here, where everybody gets a slice of the cake, including the investors. They still get their fair share, but they don't get the lion's share anymore. Profits are shared out more evenly, more people are employed, more people have more money in their pockets, and their utility bills are virtually zero. So their ability to spend money in the local economy is increased, the local economy is more vibrant, more goods are manufactured and sold, and so it goes on. I would also like to encourage a rapidly growing recycling industry in Scotland. Not only renewable energy, which I've talked about before, but a fully fledged, multi-faceted recycling system involving perhaps dozens of different companies which recycle everything. I know that already goes on to some extent, but what I'd like to see is not only the raw materials being broken up and recycled, but actually made into new products. Products which can then be exported, long-lived products which are not thrown away, and we would reward companies for designing plastic items which are larger and last longer. Things like, for example, car body panels, things like bumpers, things like buckets, things like basins, any kind of containers, bins, tankage. All these plastics can be used for these much larger objects which have to last longer anyway. Water tanks, flotation tanks, even things like small boats can be made out of plastic. So the possibilities are endless, but the point is you cannot do any of this unless you have a written constitution which obliges the government to split the economy up into this sort of a system. But this is what I would like to propose, and I'm hopefully going to get to talk about this on the 13th of September at Pennycook at a public town hall meeting, where I will be there with a well-known SNP politician, the deputy leader of the SNP in fact, and also with Paul Kavanagh, better known as Wee Ginger Doug from the national newspaper. I don't normally involve myself too much in trying to plan everything ahead, but some of these ideas need to be talked about now, and if it's not me suggesting it, then somebody else would have to do it. I just want to put the ideas out there and get people thinking now about how this could be done. But believe me, a written constitution is the starting point for this, because it decides what the rules of this new country will be, not just for us living in it, but for the government which runs it, and for all the companies which come in from outside of Scotland to operate here, and for all the companies and the social enterprises which will operate here in the future. We all need to know what the rules will be, and we cannot have any rules at all without a written constitution. That is what's lacking in the UK. That's why the UK economy is in utter chaos all the time, because nobody thinks far enough ahead. Nobody has constructed a multi-layered, self-sustaining economy using trade and bartering with their transnationals in order to simplify the taxation problem for multinational and transnational companies. All of these things can be done. There's nothing to stop any of it happening. But we need to talk about it, and we need to talk about it quickly and sort out what is going to go into this new constitution. That's it for today, folks. A lot of food for thought there, I know, but I know all of my audience are great at thinking. They're also great at criticising the things I come up with. So please have at it. Don't be scared to criticise me. I won't take it personally. If you have better ideas, please tell me, and let's include them in a future show. Anyway, I'm off. Got to do some more real work in the real world, but I'll talk to you again hopefully tomorrow. Bye for now.